you know, will they be able to get the 3-1, not play necessarily to their opponents? And we didn't end up getting that from them, or excuse me, a 3-0, and we didn't end up getting that, pulling the result of that 3-1. So again, simplicity here is like, with that practice like you play mantra, are they going to constantly keep that upgraded version, you know, Gale Force 2.0, if you will, throughout the entirety of this series? We'll find out, because Phoenix has made his way through the first ban phase.
Well, one hero that will also make his way through is Hanzo. So Maiev Medivh, the usual here. We've seen a lot more Maiev kind of be let through in the European region if you watched a little bit today. But if not, you know, we're seeing some teams kind of play around that, see what they can get, see what they can obtain. And so not willing to give up potential Maiev, Hanzo, things like that. Phoenix is here. This is Cursed Hollow. By the way, there was, yeah, he's going to be first pick, no surprise there. But there was a play by Chris earlier that was made on Zealots. I mean, I'm sitting there at home, like, I'm getting ready, and I'm like, that was a sick play. Dude was killing it on Cursed Hollow, actually, earlier with that Phoenix. We'll see maybe if Simplicity can kind of recreate some of that magic for themselves.
They're going to need it here, because as we have said, Simplicity really been struggling the last couple of weeks, even to find themselves, you know, even that one victory. Granted, they've been against some titans of North America, Tempo Storm and Team 12.
It's been a tough go of it the last week and a half.
The one thing I do want to post here for Gale Force too is that they draft-wise have had some of the better priority. I don't want to say better priority, but more consistent priority. And one of them has been that Genji. Another one was Junkrat showing himself last week. If it was a map with wave clear, Junkrat every time within the first rotation. And then if not, it was always that Genji. Looking to back that up with an Abathur this time is only going to be able to help them with that kind of skirmishing capabilities here. But it's just that there has been a lot of consistency, you know, those adjustments from Gale Force in the draft. But inversely, when we look at, you know, kind of Simplicity, the exact opposite. A lot of shifts and a lot of changes. And I feel like this week, being on a new patch and having Phoenix, this is going to be one of the biggest breaking points that Simplicity can rely on that shift in paradigm with the meta, with the drafting, to hopefully find an advantage within the draft.
I mean, you mentioned the draft part. They've had very little success with the Maiev. Generally, you'll see teams kind of ban one or the other, but with Phoenix here, you don't necessarily have to worry about, do I let through the Maiev, do I let through the Medivh, and see if I can get one of those. If not, now you have that new hero, that new OP hero, at least in most people's minds. Phoenix is there. You know, I'm thinking about the matchup between Genji and Phoenix. Phoenix has great poke. So does Genji. Now, on the side of Phoenix, your shield that you have on top of that health bar regenerates so long as you're not taking damage. Genji does a very good job at poking. If you can whittle away at that shield, maybe you get some dive in there. We'll see. You know, the play back and forth between that's going to be particularly interesting.
No, I mean, that is one of my favorite things already, knowing Phoenix is going to be brought into the Nexus, right, is because of how fast his shield regenerates and the fact that you need to be out of damage for 5 seconds. You can, in theory, you know, effective HP-wise, have one of the fastest scaling HPs that you can ever get within a skirmish, almost like Muradin used to be whenever he was bugged way, way back. I might even be talking better there. That might be too far back. But whenever we saw that bug where he would immediately get his passive to kick in 5 times harder than the original, and you're like, wait a minute, this is insane. I can fight so much. In theory, the same thing is possible for Phoenix, minus he cannot be healed to that potential, right? Because of the shielding cannot be replaced.
You and I went back on 13 talent tier when we first looked at this hero. He has a talent at 13 where it's like you regenerate some of that shield. I remember you're like, oh, with Uther, that's great, right? There was an Uther Phoenix game earlier. Will we see that? Obviously at 13, he's got oh, there you go. You take away the Uther, make sure that's not even a possibility.
Yeah, and that is because, ladies and gentlemen, armor plus shielding effective HP-wise is ridiculous on how much it benefits your hero and how difficult it kind of makes them to kind of be taken down, especially when you consider, again, that trade-off with how fast it can be regened on the side of Phoenix. But still, as this draft's unfolding, you know we have the Dahaka for the side of Gale Force to kind of match out the global pressure we might get from the Abathur. Also, maybe a stage dive if they feel like it's necessary to go into that global avenue. That being said, probably going to be a mosh pit within this. But what do we want to see in the bans? Ethereal is something we may see, but I don't know if Gale Force, you know, I guess they have been willing to run it pretty comfortably. Fury is definitely a, you know, competent Ethereal if they go that direction. So Simplicity may want to rid of that.
Well, the Garrosh is still here. I don't know if he kind of fits the play style of a Genji, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Genji's kind of there, so I'm with you on that. ETC has kind of been his backup option, so where do you go if you're not going to go Garrosh? Because obviously Genji wants to go in, and if you're cloning somebody, you'll likely go that route. It was last week, though. I believe they ran the Genji Li Ming with the Abathur.
So they end up banning out the Gray main, maybe with the thought of, you know, that Tyrael is likely going to be picked up. If we don't see the Tyrael, I wouldn't mind a Diablo on Cursed Hollow. That in mind, it's not like there is the best targets to kind of focus down and get that one-shot capabilities, but you can get more value out of the devastating charge, you know, 16 Wombo combo that really has kind of brought Diablo out of the realm of hell and back into the meta.
You know, also denying the Uther, not just for the heals on Phoenix to protect that backline, but also giving the potential Divine Mosh, you know, combo that we've seen in the past. That's not going to be there. So obviously support, a big thing. We've seen a bit more Rhaegar on the side of Gale Force Esports as of late. So Gale Force obviously has that potential here. And it's a weird thing because Abathur cloning a Rhaegar isn't too terrible. So let's see if they are willing to go down there. If you need that extra healing, else double Genji, double Li Ming. There's a whole lot you can do.
Last time we did get Gale Force on Curse, they ran with the Abathur Genji in their 1-2 again. The ETC taken up, but they did move into the Rhaegar. I would expect that to be replaced with the Tyrael, as we said before, but there's no Grey main now, so who's going to be that extra damage area? There's the Tyrael, there's the Rhaegar. Keep it kind of as a blank slate for that last pick and what you want to make happen there. It could be, with how much offense this is, it very much could be that wild Illidan composition that you see kind of picked up. I'm not going to say that I think it has to be by any means, but it very likely, or very much well could be. This is one of the few comps that kind of, and maps that cater to that playstyle.
Now on the side of Simplicity, obviously, you know, we've got Phoenix. And, you know, again, coming into this, is it going to be Zuna? Is it going to be Hostia? It will likely be Hostia in this scenario, but you never know, depending on what this second pick is. If you feel you need that extra protection, I think pairing up another StarCraft hero, Tassadar, I don't think he fits very well on this map, but we've seen some different play style. We also saw double support come back a little bit here for Simplicity, but that normally involves Uther. So maybe outside shot, just to throw it out there. If you're going to double support, maybe a Brightwing.
We're getting wild here, JL.
I know.
We said the word.
I don't see it, but I'm saying, like, it's Simplicity, double support.
Yeah, no, they've been willing to run some kind of wild double supports. We'll see. Tychus and Lucio is going to be the selection here. Lucio has found his way back here, ladies and gentlemen. Only took a Malfurion nerf and a ban onto the Uther, but he's got a home.
The Lucio's always kind of been interesting for me. He doesn't really have any stuns here. Normally, you kind of worry about, all right, and no stuns yet. Gale Force still has one pick to go. But generally, you're like, all right, Lucio, sound barrier gets interrupted. You hear that cue, you see the stun, it comes in. If there are no stuns there, all of a sudden, sound barrier is a guarantee. It can't be interrupted. And all of a sudden, you've got a really strong line of defense. So I like the pickup there. Gale Force obviously still need more. I imagine we got to get some damage here.
Yeah, it's got to be an Illidan, Sonya, or Arthas, I feel like. And again, out of those, it's Illidan's a little bit wild and risky. Arthas very vulnerable to that Tychus pickup that we saw in the last slot. And Sonya probably the safest out of them all. If not, you would go with another double warrior. But I can't find any that I feel like would fill that would have the damage necessary to be able to get away with this composition. Maybe a Cassia also could fill this role, but again, not enough auto attackers on the other side for me. Oh, maybe, I guess, Cassia, because Tychus Phoenix.
Hey.
Stick with the Hanzo. I forgot we made this way, you know, kind of this far down.
Hanzo, all of a sudden, he's taking a backseat to Phoenix.
Yeah, my goodness.
I mean,
we get one new guy on the block and everybody forgets about Hanzo.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the joy of the meta that we're going into, especially when we look at the next patch coming out. But right now, obviously, we've got quite a bit to consider here, Hanzo. You know, you could go try and take advantage of that ETC on the front line, get more of that auto attack build, but when it comes to the boss play, obviously you've got Genji to kind of be that single target damage, and we've seen some killer play from Biggie. So will we see potentially just, let's go the scattering arrow build and just kind of boss race this, make sure that we can take advantage of camps, mercenary control, boss control, things like that, and manipulate rotations, which they've kind of used to their advantage for picks. So it's interesting.
I wouldn't mind it, honestly, if they went that direction. My only maybe qualm with that would just be catering to too much of a poke playstyle into a Lucio, which is one of the few things that he is a pretty effective HP, you know, healer going into, and you have his Tyrael, so the boss control is maybe not as dire on the side of Gale Force Esports, but it's Cursed Hollow. It's a map that not only do the bosses get affected by that playstyle, let's be real here, the map caters to scattering arrow build, unless you have that Garrosh that you need to get the armor shred on the other side. Not the case in this game. I don't know. To be honest, I love the start of the draft for Gale Force. Very cookie cutter, you know, kind of vague, but I felt like a lot of the tools that Simplicity ended up getting, I didn't mind, and I by no means look at this and go, you know, how is Simplicity going to deal with this game? You know, put the titles and the teams up there. It does get a little bit more grim, but I feel like Simplicity's got to feel comfortable with that Phoenix.
I think it's definitely something, and you look at the Hanzo pick, I agree with you. Maybe it could have been something else, but how can you ever argue against the Hanzo, right? But I feel like it's kind of like, a few different things. It can come together, but it doesn't necessarily have the same type of synergy you would have expected. So it'll be interesting.
I think anytime that you put a Tyrael as a solo warrior in this type of composition with only a high mobility squishy to get the sanctification value on it, it just puts more pressure on the Tyrael. It's not that it's bad, it just goes that Tyrael has to play out of his mind. But in the blue here is, in fact, Gale Force Esports. We're going to have big impact repping that Genji. Mike Udall will be playing our Hanzo. B-Kid is going to be the Abathur. Fury playing Tyrael, and last up, supporting the squad, Akaface on Rhaegar.
And on the right side, in red, will be the old gods here, also known as Simplicity. Hosty's going to be on the Tychus this go-around, which means K1 Pro is going to be on the Lucio. More importantly, King Caffeine on that front line on ETC. Great success so far. And here we go, Zuna on Phoenix. He loves the new heroes, Dreadnought. Rounding out is going to be Prismat on Dahaka.
I'm going to go ahead and just throw this out. If Zuna's opening performance on, kind of Phoenix is impactful or maybe unimpactful, as we saw out of the Maiev performance in the first, kind of week, it's going to be a struggling game for Simplicity to be your first pick commitment and, again, kind of have that difficulties. But I will say that I think Zuna does stand out greater whenever he's on those kind of backliner heroes. Yes, Phoenix is a kind of in-out back and forth. He's not necessarily only a backliner. He is a frontliner depending on the circumstances, but it makes me, a little bit more optimistic than the Maiev coming out.
I think, to your point, if we see Zuna go in for those big warps, in instead of out, you know what's up, right? And if it misses, and you'll know it when you see it. So I'm really interested to see how aggressive Zuna chooses to be. I'm 100% with you on this.
It's going to be a doozy. For anybody who didn't kind of keep tracking, you're wondering what we're referring to. The first time that we saw kind of Zuna perform onto that Maiev, it wasn't the prettiest look, and they even kind of admitted it, talked about it later on, wasn't so comfortable within it. But TLDR, looking for a stronger performance here. And I think that this is going to be the hero that can very much get that for the squad. But it also has just the right amount of playmaking, I feel like, for Zuna. It's not that kind of sit back, I want to say, maybe Nazebo-esque, right, where you're just throwing out the damage, hoping something lands. It's got that, kind of when you make the misplay, he can go and get that kind of punishment.
It's interesting. Jaina was a prominent hero for them early on. It's actually the hero he averages the most deaths on, a backliner, but he likes to go in for those big plays, especially late game when you get those roots, those slows, the big impact plays, and he wasn't able to kind of fully execute on those. And I think now with this hero, it definitely fits that. So we'll see if they can take advantage of it. Level 4 picked up here by Simplicity, pushing in with the Knights. Knights picked up on the side of Gale Force, going to be a little bit further behind in this rotation. Yeah,
and though this isn't maybe the most profound or, kind of innovative rotation coming out from Simplicity, the fact that we see them already accumulating this much of a dominance on a map like Cursed Hollow and the laning, being so proactive with the mercenaries here, I suddenly, feeling like that, talking about this team being one that's willing to kind of turn up a little bit more towards that playoff area, I feel like it's coming to light here. Granted, that experience was kind of thwarted back here by Gale Force. Now that they picked up their own night camp, they get the siege out through mid. But Simplicity, they're being proactive on the map. And again, it feels a little bit, a step in the right direction here for the squad.
This is one place where I think Phoenix can potentially excel. Obviously, just defending with a Phoenix and a Lucio, not the best to clear this. But getting that big splash auto attack in, making sure you have that extra range is generally going to do well. But the resources, we might have a pick here. We've got skirmish going on, Dread.
Yeah, Mike Udall was able to actually make it out with the natural agility over the wall. Now the team there, nice drag from Prismat. Now we got Zuna coming in, throwing down that plasma cutter. A lot of damage onto Mike Udall, and first blood over to Simplicity. Prismat not able to, get the drag cooldown off in time to get a Fury. Fury actually gets the bait over Eldruins, and Smite gets him out of there. Very well done. Prismat did end up, kind of sacrificing the Tyrael chase down that I thought they might get, but for good reason there, as he found himself a wild Akaface.
Things working out well here in the early game for Simplicity. Looking at builds right away on the side of Phoenix, we see a little bit of a change up from our EU counterparts. Target acquired, making sure that basic attacks against slowed heroes with that repeater cannon grant extra movement speed. That allows you to hit and then move in to chase those kills. But on the other side, Dreadnought, Rhaegar, we see Akaface going a slightly different build.
Yeah, he's going with the cooldown, or excuse me, the reduced mana on top of your Q. It typically is going to be paired with Tidal Waves at 13. It's one of the better kind of AoE supporting builds for the Rhaegar, but doesn't really take off too much again until you can move into the Tidal Wave. Just the CDR mixed with the mana reduction, suddenly you become, I mean, a far better support. Less in the single target department, obviously without Earthshield, but more so in that, AoE poke-oriented build. This is something that we've seen from Akaface multiple times, though.
The Innovator. Still remember his kerosene builds from earlier this year going into the Insight. Probably one of the few people I've ever seen go Insight and be fully committed to it. But I think he actually is like 2-0 with that build, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 1-1, but he definitely has had success on, kind of doing it his way. But, obviously a lot of success, a big part of Gale Force's team right now.
Simplicity here with this tribute, kind of sharking around. Fury been the only man to kind of anchor and provide vision here. Hanzo taking a bit of a risky rotation going through mid, even throwing down that scouting arrow. Now, going to move up. Now, you see Mikey Doll looking for that poke over the wall, but he's going to be in a bad spot. He has to take that slow rotation around. There's no way he can kind of sit and poke and prod from above. There he goes, using the natural agility, but Simplicity not going to force the hand, at least not quite yet, over this trib.
It's kind of a weird thing because the longer Gale Force delays this, even if they lose the tribute, the closer they can get to 10 by the next one. But it looks like Akaface right now, Zuna not able to get in range there. You could tell that is the unfamiliarity as he's going to warp out. But that's the unfamiliarity of a hero. You go in, you get the extra auto attack range when you go into the big AoE splash. You can switch between your auto attacks if you're not as familiar with Phoenix. And when you go that big AoE, you get a little bit more range when you switch between your autos, different range for different targets.
Boss is going to be started by Mikey Doll. He threw out that scouting arrow, but King Caffeine has known this from kind of second one that this boss may in fact be started. It's been enough to scare off Gale Force, especially, as you said, those heroics being closed in now for Simplicity. I do believe we're going to see, kind of the scanner selected here for Phoenix. We didn't get any, Planet Cracker over out of you.
It looks cool, it sounds cool, but
it does.
If you want to be ultimately effective, the salvo probably your best bet. Target acquired in that direction. There's an actual target acquired at 4, but I guarantee you when you see the target acquires with that one, you're running it's like, it doesn't even matter if you run, right? If you get out of range on the initial, sure, but if you're running from that thing, you're just like delaying the inevitable because that thing hurts.
It does. Those shots coming in, spraying so very quickly. Gale Force here is now going to have to make a tough, kind of answer to a very difficult question. Simplicity with their heroics instead is going to start the boss rather than making the rotation up to that tribute. And now Gale Force either immediately has to take the tribute this moment, or they're going to lose a lot more than that. A tribute, a boss, and look at Dahaka, maybe even going to get the stall.
Well, when you've got a Hanzo, it looks like you might be able to trade out here. They're getting quite the value. ETC first to leave, first to rotate up. Because that boss just now pinged, Gale Force knows that they have an advantage no matter who comes here. Prismat's got to be careful. We got the long-distance Planet Cracker into the mosh pit. Are you kidding me?
The boss control is going to be real knockback there for King Caffeine, but the fight's not over. K1 Pro comes in with a brilliant sound barrier, able to save all of the members of Simplicity. Tyrael passive goes off. It's going to kill King Caffeine, but 4-for-1 trade in favor of Simplicity, denying both of the bosses.
So much happened so quickly. I saw that he was holding his heroic. I'm like, well, if you get a sick mosh pit, Planet Cracker has a place. And then you're watching the fight, and all of a sudden you see it come through, that big detonating sound as it goes global almost there. That is just way too wild there.
Dragon Arrow going in onto Zuna. He has no teleport. Actually, he's going to have it. Cyber Agility should be available for big impact. Oh my, is the shielding going to start spawning up? It will, but there goes the big impact. Comes in with the Swift Strike, able to get him reset and out. Good punishment there for Gale Force. Communication between the Dragon Arrow and big impact there, but still look at how much pressure Simplicity has been able to apply, both the top and bottom. Getting not only those forts, but then 13 talent tiers.
I love the fact that we're seeing so much. So much has happened in the last 30 seconds to a minute. Judgment.
Yeah.
Judgment got picked up here, which means that whoever they're targeting, we're likely to see a Genji clone at this point. They are going to prioritize a target and blow that person up as fast as they possibly can. The thing that you have to consider, though, because Dragon Blade is obviously going to be a stun, but Judgment, they all have windups. And Lucio, obviously, sound barrier can be interrupted. So if he's not the primary target or he doesn't get a sound barrier interrupted, all of a sudden, it's going to be tough. But if you can Judgment in, Dragon Arrow behind that, get that AoE splash stun, maybe onto the Lucio, that could be an opportunity for Gale Force. Either way, it's going to be fun when we see it.
Yeah, he didn't move into, the stun heal at level 13. Instead, sticking to the armor while getting that wall ride. So he is going to be a vulnerable target. Tychus not so much with that Neo Steel coating. Phoenix is susceptible, but also has the opportunity to try and get the teleport away, making it more difficult for that initiation. And Dahaka, ETC, I mean, they're both, pretty beefy there. So we're likely going to be those two targets. And do they have that damage, that one-shot capability to get it all? I don't know here. Honestly, it's a bold move here for Gale Force with this draft.
Curse point, no 13, see if they hold. They already have the Siege Giants in the top, which can buy them a little bit of time in that top lane. Hosty will confirm the channel, but the clone's going to go in a little bit too late.
Curse here for Simplicity. Let's see what they make happen. They have the Giants in the top lane. Dahaka is making the rotation to be able to deal with those, not wanting to kind of negate all the effectiveness of that Curse in the top lane. During that time frame, Gale Force may want to look to try and force the hand down in the bottom half of this map, but without that clone and the 13s, it's likely they'll play it a bit slower here. It's once Dahaka comes in, helps the siege, aids the siege of Simplicity, that the fireworks going to happen. Oh, look at that. Dive in onto Phoenix. All the combos used, but Zuna is just comfortable there. Full HP now, teleporting away. There comes in the mosh pit. The Planet Cracker is thrown down, and 2 members of Gale Force are just removed here. Simplicity is on an absolute tear, 9-2 in terms of kills, and now they're going to be looking for this key.
They can maybe get more here. It's only Hanzo. We still got 15 seconds. I think it's keeping out, but this duration,
they're going.
I think that they should. A Phoenix plus a Tychus has a lot of sieging potential.
It does. It's one of the highest, auto attack damage dealers that we have in the game. Tychus is extremely effective in that area, but now we have Phoenix to be able to join. The sieging capabilities are going to be real. Simplicity, do not take the risk. Instead, back out here with their 3-level talent tier. Or 3 levels and talent tier advantage.
Yeah, the whole thing is I mean, we were just speaking about this before. I'm like, all right, if you go all in on a target, who's going to interrupt the sound barrier? If it's not Lucio and you don't get that initial blow-up kill, there's a problem. They didn't get that. Sound barrier came out. Here's a power slide in. Fury, he's not going to be long, as that's going to confirm another kill. Material trait value, not for much, in Simplicity.
Isolation. And the drag. Prismat clutching it out there. Back-to-back max range CCs. Finds another.
This is another keep, and if they can find another pick, this might be game. This is guaranteed keep with this Night Camp behind them and almost nobody to clear this. Michael Udall clearing up the side lane, and they've got their eyes on him. Prismat, natural agility, going to get Udall to safety.
Like the use there of that amp it up with K1 Pro and the mobility just to always make Prismat that much more lethal on the Dahaka for the drags. Simplicity here. 2 keeps up, dominating Gale Force Esports in game number 1. We said it. I talked about it a little bit. You heard Mike Udall dabbling into it with it a little bit about how this team is a group that, when their back's against the wall, do not doubt, do not count them out. And this series right now is very much showing that that is still the case here.
You know, one thing that's fun here, we see battle momentum, I dare call it that. It's actually Arsenal Overcharge. You get the cooldown reduction with every time you auto attack as Phoenix. And this is old school battle momentum, Dread. It's not just your basic abilities.
It's your heroic, boys.
And if you're going Planet Cracker, you know that thing's on a long cooldown. And Zuna likes to make those aggressive plays with the warp, likes to make things happen. And so I think this fits his playstyle. What we've seen from them so far, pretty effective.
We got bosses spawning here. Simplicity going to go ahead and start up theirs here as this tribute. It's going to be 10 seconds out, very, very close to this. Gale Force will end up picking up their own boss, not going to be contested by Simplicity, thanks to Hanzo and that race capabilities, not like the last one that we saw. And with that, what are we going to see happen for Simplicity? Is it the triple keep slash game kind of decision-making for them, or do they play it a bit slower?
I would like to see the keep. I mean, they still have 16 tier advantage. They can siege up behind an Odin. If they just want to make the power play to take all keeps off the battleground and just basically neutralize anything Abther could hope to get, I mean, that's one way. They're already moving forward. You can see just slowly sieging up that boss at the bottom. We'll get fort, probably not much else, maybe not even the fort because there's catapults in that lane.
16, still nowhere to be found for Gale Force, but you know the minute that they get that, they're going to try that combo once again, get that dive, that all-in on the back line. Here comes the Odin. This is definitely going to be the key now that we see the Odin use here from Hosty. It's just how much more is this, in fact, going to be gained?
King Caffeine's positioning is the #1 thing you have to watch. Him on that ETC, trying to make the plays, trying to get that big power slide. If he can land that, look for Planet Cracker to come out again, things like that. Michael Udall took so much damage on the back end of that. Now this boss going straight to core.
Yeah, it has almost no damage done to it whatsoever. It forces the Ancestral from Akaface. Judgment going to go in onto Zuna. Dragon Arrow is going to be warned there by King Caffeine, dropping down the mosh pit, locking in Tyrael. And I believe the clone, not enough to gain a kill for either team, but the core is falling here as the shielding is now going to be removed. Clone is now going to be taken off the table. Drag lands on the Genji, 80% and counting. Simplicity is going to try and take this game, get the first kill. Pressure onto Zuna. He teleports out. The Mule's going to be healing this up, but there is way too much damage there from all of Simplicity. Hosty flanking around, and that is GG. Simplicity takes on